Today, we're going to talk about what I believe is the most dangerous carbohydrate in the world. And no, it's not sugar. Not even close. This carb causes a massive spike in blood sugar levels, even more than sugar itself, yet it's not technically classified as sugar. It's a carb, but not a sugar. This one ingredient can trigger type 2 diabetes, fatty liver, and insulin resistance, which is the first step toward developing diabetes. In short, it seriously messes with your blood sugar. It also leads to visceral fat. That's the fat that builds up around your organs and throws off your gut health by feeding harmful bacteria while hurting the good ones. It's an extremely inflammatory carbohydrate, creating swelling not just in your joints but especially in your gut. If you're worried about bad cholesterol, the small LDL particles that can sneak into your artery walls, this carb can make that happen faster than you'd think. What's even worse, it's marketed as having zero sugars. It's cheap too, about 20 cents a pound. This 25-pound bag I have here costs around $5. That's because it's heavily subsidized, meaning taxpayers cover part of the cost, so companies get it at a fraction of its real price. Now, what's the purpose of this carb? Honestly, it has no nutritional value at all. It's simply a filler. It adds bulk to foods without offering anything good. The average person eats somewhere between 65 and 250 pounds of it every year. Altogether, that's about 21 billion pounds produced yearly. You'll find it in gluten-free foods, baby formulas, baked goods, and even in sports products for athletes. So, can you guess what this carb is? It's a starch, but not the kind of starch found in your grandma's potatoes. I'm talking about industrial starch, things like modified food starch, cornstarch, and maltodextrin. Let's break it down. What exactly is starch? Over here, we have sugar, and over there, we have starch, which is basically a long chain of sugar molecules linked together. But when starch is processed and modified in a lab, its structure is stripped down and weakened. Those bonds between the sugar molecules become fragile. When you eat it, it breaks down into sugar faster than glucose does. So, when I talk about industrial starch, I don't mean the natural starch in vegetables or potatoes. I'm talking about this highly refined powder, ground into tiny particles and bleached during processing. Of course, you wouldn't want to eat it straight with a spoon. It's not sweet unless you chew it for a while, because chewing starts breaking those sugar bonds. That's actually why bread starts to taste sweet after you chew it a bit. Your saliva begins turning the starch into sugar. Now, let's look at some of the chemicals used in making this industrial starch. You'll want to pay attention here. One common additive is sodium trimetaphosphate, which has been linked to kidney stress, hardening of arteries, and even bone loss. It may also speed up aging in your arteries. Another chemical used is vinyl acetate, which experts consider a possible human carcinogen. Then there's sodium hypochlorite, also known as bleach. It's interesting. Bleach is regulated as a carcinogen in drinking water, but not in food starch. Overexposure to it can harm your kidneys, tooth enamel, and mucous membranes. There's also another additive often used in baby formulas and beverages that can interfere with mitochondrial function when consumed in excess. And the shocking part? All these chemicals are considered generally recognized as safe, or GRAS. But if they haven't been tested in long-term studies, how can we really call them safe? So it's not hard to see why chronic diseases are becoming so common today. If you take a look at this label, you'll see 16 grams of total carbohydrates, 1 gram of fiber, and 0 grams of sugar. So what makes up the rest? That's 15 grams of carbohydrates not shown anywhere on the label. That's why starch is so sneaky. It's invisible unless you check the ingredients closely. Modified food starch, modified cornstarch, and wheat starch are all forms of industrial starch. This stuff is basically damaged protein that clogs your system. It's directly linked to diabetes complications, Alzheimer's plaques in the brain, and scarring in the liver. But there's something else you should know. Without diving into too much chemistry, there's a byproduct of glucose called an aldehyde. You may have heard of it. It's used to preserve bodies after death. Then there's another compound that's responsible for that awful hangover feeling after drinking alcohol. These are toxic byproducts that form when starch breaks down. And believe it or not, it gets even worse. Think about junk food. What's it mostly made of? Sugar, starch, and seed oils. When starch and seed oils are heated together, they create a toxic mix that damages your tissues. Hardly anyone eats starch alone. Most people get it through snacks, like chips, which are made mostly of refined industrial starch and seed oils. Walk down any snack aisle, and you'll find countless versions of these crunchy, oily products. Chips are roughly 65% starch and 30% oil. Crackers, like Cheez-Its, are about 70% starch and 25% seed oil. Breakfast cereals, around 80% starch, often with added sugar or oil. Bread is usually 75% starch and 15% oil or sugar. Pasta has starch too, often with added oils. French fries, they're roughly 80% starch and 15% oil. The strange thing is that for years, we've all focused on sugar being the bad guy. But starch is eaten in far greater amounts, and it's even more harmful. To be clear, I'm not criticizing natural starches from whole foods like potatoes or vegetables. I'm talking about industrial starches, highly processed powders that are nothing like real food. There's a huge difference between boiling a fresh potato and adding hot water to instant mashed potatoes from a packet. Some people say, I never eat cornstarch, but a quick look inside their pantry might prove otherwise. You'll usually find Pop-Tarts, snack cakes, or other foods loaded with modified cornstarch. Even the organic ones are full of starch and seed oils. It's basically the same formula. Here's something that shocked me recently. I bought a pack of hot dogs, and the third ingredient listed was modified food starch. Why? Because it's a cheap filler to add volume. If you look at the real definition of food, something that nourishes, sustains life, and helps repair tissues, then ultra-processed foods don't fit that at all. Industrial starch, seed oils, and synthetic sugars don't qualify as food in the biological sense, but because of loopholes in the legal definition, they're still allowed to be sold and labeled as food. That's a topic for another video. The basic formula for most ultra-processed foods is simple: 5 to 20% sugar, often artificial, 20 to 35% seed oil, and 55 to 75% starch. Starch is the biggest part, making up the majority of calories in these foods. I actually created an app to help you spot these hidden ingredients. Just download it for free, scan the barcode on any food item, and it will instantly show you how much sugar, seed oil, and starch it contains. You can use it at home or while shopping. It's an eye-opener. Sadly, about 65% of the calories children eat come from ultra-processed foods, and around 55 pounds of that is just industrial starch. For teenagers, it jumps to 70%. That's roughly 106 pounds of starch every year. Even adults aren't far behind. About 55% of their calories come from ultra-processed food, which adds up to 67 pounds of industrial starch annually. It's shocking to realize that most of what we eat today isn't real food. It's processed starch disguised as nutrition. So the next time you grab a snack, take a second to check the label. The truth is right there. You just have to look for it. Stay aware, eat smart, and protect your health. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more practical wellness insights and health tips.